News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, at 9:30 on Sunday morning when I'll be asking Jacob Rees-Mogg whether the government is making the best of Brexit. I'll also be joined by Boris Johnson's former economics advisor Gerard Lyons to discuss Jeremy Hunt's decision not to cut taxes. And leading feminist Julie Bindel will be telling me why she thinks Nicola Sturgeon is a disgrace to women. All that and more at 9:30 tomorrow.
I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. 276 Flybe staff have been made redundant after the airline went into administration for the second time in 3 years. Around 75,000 holidaymakers have had their bookings cancelled. Flybe returned to the skies last April after collapsing in 2020. They were operating flights to 17 destinations. The head of the RMT says its members will decide by the 8th of February whether to accept the latest and final pay offer from the rail delivery group. Mick Lynch says discussions will be held with members across the country over the next 10 days. He told GB News he doesn't feel optimistic.
What we've got is a really poor offer. The pay offer is below less than half of the rate of inflation over these 2 years. Inflation is running over 22-23% in the retail price index. This is 9% over 2 years, and we had no offer for 3 years before that. So our people are getting poorer, and at the same time their conditions and their working lives are being trampled all over. So I'm quite suspicious about what's going on, and I don't know if our members would be prepared to accept it.
Sir Keir Starmer says he will publish his tax returns if he becomes Prime Minister. The Labour leader has told the Sunday Times that the Chancellor and Deputy Prime Minister would also do the same. It comes amid ongoing questions over Tory Chair Nadhim Zahawi's tax affairs and the financial affairs of Boris Johnson. In international news, former US President Donald Trump has relaunched his campaign for re-election in 2024.
They said he's not doing rallies, he's not campaigning. Maybe he's lost that step. I'm more angry now and I'm more committed now than I ever was because...
Mr. Trump was speaking at a Republican event in New Hampshire in his first campaign speech. Several party members decided not to attend or claimed to have scheduling conflicts. Mr. Trump's next stop will be South Carolina, which is also seen as a kingmaker state. And the Princess of Wales says she's determined to change attitudes towards children's early years development. In an open letter, Kate said she wants there to be more focus on a child's first 5 years and how it shapes their adult life. The letter comes ahead of the launch of a new awareness campaign. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Time now for those headliners.
Welcome to Headliners. We're going to take a run through tomorrow's top stories. I'm accompanied by the amazing comedians Paul Cox and Diane Spencer. Before we do that, let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. We start with the Sunday Telegraph. It says, hospitals at home plan to save the NHS. So everybody's going to be working from home. Even surgeons, they're going to come around and cut you open on your coffee table. The Observer says, I saw children face bullying and racism at Asylum Hotel. Sunday Mirror has Conservative cash scandal with top Tories Russian oil millions. We're going to cover that in a bit. The Sunday Express has Rishi at war over migrants. The Daily Star on Sunday says, a pain in the bun. A dumping donut is on its way. They're referring to a weather front that's going to bring us some cold weather. And those were the front pages. First, let's talk us through the Telegraph, Paul.
Yeah, lots of interesting stories on the front of the Telegraph tomorrow, Leo. The first of which is, as you already mentioned, hospitals at home plan to save the NHS. It's an interesting story, isn't it? Because I'm not exactly sure how they're going to achieve this. Like you say, there's lots of jokes here. I mean, are they going to do operations on Zoom? I mean, everyone else is working from home, aren't they? So we might as well have surgeons working from home as well. But I guess it saves money.
Well, I'm a little bit worried this is going to sort of encourage my family members to go, oh, let me have a go. It's like, no, please don't, Mum. Like she already watches way too much Dr. Pimple Popper. I dread to think if there's suddenly instructions like you're some kind of flat pack that needs to be assembled by your family members. But I think the idea is that they're going to do a lot of by video link. But I kind of imagine that sort of dystopian future, don't you, where, like, a doctor is sat there and they're looking like at a bank of CCTV images and they're all sort of people in their own homes. It just feels a bit wrong to me, doesn't it?
Is that how they're going to do it, though? I mean,
well, they said they're going to do a lot more video link, and I'm assuming if you're going to keep an eye on the patient, like if you need to sort of monitor people, then webcams is a way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I had in 2021, I guess COVID and lockdown kicked this all off because they wanted to restrict the amount of sort of FaceTime, the amount of actual personal time face-to-face because that could spread diseases. And I had a web session with a private doctor because, of course, you can't get an appointment on the NHS anymore. So even though you pay for the NHS, you've then got to pay extra on top for a private doctor. But I'm not upset about it. But yeah, it did seem to make sense, although I felt like they just fobbed me off and prescribed me antibiotics that I probably didn't need. I had COVID.
I mean, there is a slight danger. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
There's a slight danger because obviously it requires the doctors to sort of get in close sometimes. Yeah. Like, I'm one of those people who grow moles just for fun.
Yeah.
And every so often those moles do need to be investigated and occasionally removed. And I remember during COVID, I did have to send a photograph of my mole in. Now, for me, who's like reasonably tech savvy, that's okay. But for somebody who isn't, it's a little bit more tricky. You can't send in pictures of fuzzy moles. You know, you might miss something.
No, there is a website for that, actually. But I think this is actually, a lot of this is happening already. I think, like you say, you've had to do it I had NHS doctor's appointments, family did during the pandemic and since. And actually, I've never gone back to the doctor. You know, I'm an asthmatic, so I have regular appointments with the doctor. I've never actually been back to the doctors for my asthma since 2019. And you know, one complaint I did have had some, you know, some slightly dodgy symptoms, so they got me in. I think this is just the norm now. I don't think this is.
And it's convenient for you, and it saves the NHS money. So maybe we need more of it. And it's going to work out better. Who knows?
Exactly.
There's another story on this.
Yeah, there is.
So Sturgeon is under fire again.
Yeah, I mean, talking about more of something, the thing that would never happen just keeps happening, I'm afraid. Twice in a week. And I mean, it doesn't look like it's that.
Tell us what the thing is.
It doesn't. Well, the thing is finding that there are convicted criminals that were convicted as a man, transitioning to be a woman, generally rape, unfortunately, generally crimes against women that are transitioning once they've been convicted, so that they can get a supposedly easier ride in prison by going to a women's
ride,
prison.
You mean? And also, I mean, the other advantage, the other incentive for male predators to transition is previous crimes almost get expunged because if anybody Googles your name, and you've got a new name, you're called, you know, Lulu Trixabel or whatever, your previous crimes that are committed under, you know, Bob Smith aren't gonna turn up.
Absolutely. It's madness.
Yeah. Moving on to the Sunday Express. Diane, what do they have in the front?
OK, so they're going with Rishi at war over migrants. So what it appears is that Rishi Sunak wants to change the law. He wants to bring in new legislation that would completely remove the right to asylum here for illegal immigrants, so and illegal entrants. So it's to combat the boats, because we all know that the boats are very, very dangerous. They're an illegal way of getting into the UK, but a lot of people are dying and it's dangerous, it funds crime, etc. We do need to stop the boats. Now, Rishi Sunak says that he wants to make it so that if you come over by the boat, immediately you're detained, you're taken away, but also there is no way you can claim asylum, no way you could be a refugee.
I mean, it sounds like a good system. It works in Australia, where, you know, if you enter the country illegally, you immediately forfeit all right to claim asylum. There are legitimate routes to claiming asylum that you can follow if you're a genuine asylum seeker. But this whole, you know, economic migrants just jumping on a boat and coming over because they want to, it would wipe that out. But the Home Office want to stop it because because they must have big walls around their house, I should imagine.
Well, he's facing a lot of internal conflict from Whitehall, and it's described in this article as the Whitehall blob. Right. And there is an insider who says, oh, in the past, other Home Secretaries have suggested this, but we've stalled them by dragging our feet. And it's like, whoa!
That's why we're in this trouble. That's why we're in this mess, because you dragged your feet. And now we've got this huge... That isn't just a problem for the UK having to house and sustain tens of thousands of illegal migrants coming across the channel. It's also a danger to them because, you know, sometimes they die. They're not coming across in, you know, well looked after craft.
No, had I read this story maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said there is probably valid reasons to try and seek out softer measures. Because, you know, for these asylum sneakers, as
what?
I think I just made that term up.
That's
I haven't just made that term up.
I mean, it is people who are abusing the asylum system to gain entry to
the point I'd like to make, though, is that we now have to try other ways. And it does feel slightly inhumane to say, if you come by dinghy, you're going home. But at the end of the day, if you do come by dinghy, it's probably the best measure because we need to prevent that from happening. Yeah. Now, I know there are lots of things we need to prevent from happening, like we need to prevent things happening in France or further back or, you know, don't wage war on the Middle East, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, you know, this is the final stop and we need to stop it happening.
Yeah. And Paul, staying with you, the front page of the Observer has some more bad news about.
Yeah, this is the next step from this last story, essentially. So, the headline is: "I saw children face bullying and racism in asylum hotel." And we've all seen pictures and videos of these asylum hotels now, where hotels have been entirely taken over and sort of repatriated by asylum seekers seeking their asylum or waiting to be processed. Yeah. And we've seen some horrific videos just recently of sort of infighting. I mean, this isn't fighting between anyone in the UK and the people staying at the hotel. This is fighting amongst themselves, because, of course, it's not just us that's racist. But the point of this story is that there's children involved.
Yeah.
Which makes this very, very tricky, I find, and tricky to joke about, because it's saying that they're being bullied and they're saying that, there's racism being used against the children. And the point they've made in here a couple of times is that, one child was told that if he isn't a good boy, then he would have, his asylum claim dismissed. Well, we don't know. I haven't got the context here. I've read through this story and I haven't got the context of how badly he was behaving, or if he was a boy.
Well, and there were worse incidents than that. Somebody said, and this was the staff, I believe, somebody said, F off back to your country, which is obviously xenophobic and racist. Someone else said, it's called the child a terrorist, which, unless they're incredibly lucky, that's probably inaccurate.
This is really appalling. And if this is being run by the Home Office, this needs to be changed immediately, because we do have such a thing called boarding schools. And if a child is arriving unaccompanied, we already have schools where a child could be housed. They already have caregivers that have been checked out by the police. There's already a system to look after a child. So I'm not sure why they're being put in hotels, especially when they don't have any adults with them.
So you're saying we should send thousands of Albanian children to Eton? I mean, this would certainly change the complexion of the Tory party in 20 years' time.
Well, why not? Because, let's give them at least give them a good start, a good impression of the UK, because some of those kids are going to stay. Why not, look after them instead of putting them into a hotel when you've already got a place where people are trained to deal with children. They're trained to deal with children who might have been through a traumatic experience, and those children can be properly looked after.
Well, sending illegal immigrants to Eton sounds like insanity to me, which probably means it's going to become Home Office policy. Next up, we've got the front page of the Mirror.
Yes, so they've gone with Conservative cash scandal, top Tories, Russian oil millions. So, a billionaire, Mohammed Mansour, is that how you pronounce his name? Mansour, is co-owner of a company that has a subsidiary that is supplying machinery to Russia's oil and gas industry. And this particular billionaire, he is also the top treasurer, the senior treasurer in the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
And he is clearly essentially making money from this company that is selling things to Russia.
And it's still operating
selling
in Russia.
things, and he's saying, oh no, but it's okay, it's just Caterpillar equipment. Excuse me, a Caterpillar, they make trucks. And what can you dig with a big truck and a digger? A trench. There's...
And logistics, you can transport armaments.
Yeah,
they're essentially big, heavy machinery. I mean, Paul, one issue I'd have with this is a lot of this machinery is used in Russia's energy industry, and Europe is still buying oil and gas. Well, maybe not oil, but gas from Russia. And, in a roundabout way, we're buying it from Russia because it goes through India or somewhere else and then comes back to us through, weird channels. So, I mean, it seems hypocritical to condemn this man for making money from Russia's energy industry when we are still paying into Russia's energy.
Exactly. And I think the flip side to this, and that's something I always look for, is that, he was investing in these things hang on, bear with me. He was investing in these things long before the war. So successful capitalists aren't famed for their morals. So essentially, he's looking for a way to make the quickest buck at this point, and that might just be it. So whilst I don't agree with it, it's what he does for a living.
But the issue is that Rishi Sunak has, continuously spouted that companies should, get away from their Russian interests. They shouldn't be investing in Russia. And he's been spouting this all the time. And yet you've got this bloke who is the senior treasurer of the Conservative Party, who has donated 600,000, I think it was. Forgive me if I get this wrong, but
that's right.
At least £2 million as well. There's this rumour in this article
from the company
that he's given £2 million to the Tory party. So Rishi can't have it both ways. You can't go around telling everybody else that they can't invest in Russia, apart from your senior treasurer who's giving money to your party. That's not how things work, Rishi.
Yeah, it's quite a bad look. Even though we should realise, those figures are a tiny fraction of 1% of the money that's given to Russia by Europe for its gas. Anyway, that's the front page is sorted. Join us after the break for Labour losing lady voters, Scotland being the wokest place in the world, apart from me, obviously, and a trans killer who now identifies as a baby and is demanding baby food and nappies in prison. Oh, because it's 2023. Of course, he/they/them is. Good luck stealing candy from them, anyway. We'll see you in just a minute. Don't go away.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prisons. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kearson. Joining me tonight are Paul, Big Papa Cox, and he insists we call him that, and Diane Spencer. He doesn't insist we call her that. Anyway, kicking things off with the Daily Mail. 5 black cops killed a black man, and the problem is white people, apparently. Is there anything that left-wing journalists can't blame on white people, Diane?
I'm not sure. So the Daily Mail have gone with the headline, Van Jones slammed for op-ed, claiming cops who killed Tyre Nichols could have been, quote, driven by racism. So Van Jones is a CNN commentator, and obviously the Tyre Nichols was killed because he was beaten severely by 5 police officers on the 7th of January, and he succumbed to his injuries and died a few days later. And the body cam footage has come out from Memphis Police Department, and it's harrowing.
Yeah, it's shocking. It reminds me of Rodney King being beaten. Oh, obviously didn't die, but this is, it's horrible.
I can't watch it. I just can't. I'm a bit too delicate, and I won't. But this commentator has said that it's that black people can harbour anti-black sentiments and can act on those feelings in harmful ways. So this commentator is claiming that there is such a pervasive undercurrent of white supremacy within the US that it's even making black police officers beat up a black person to death. And obviously this is a little bit just confusing and shocking.
It's it feels a bit counterintuitive. It feels like a bit, it's kind of like the moment that wokeness jumps the shark and everybody's like, what, you're saying black people are now racist because of white supremacy?
Yeah. It's so divisive. Because another commentator said look, you're dividing America by bringing in this racism issue. You can unite America. And when I read that, I was like, yes, now everybody can hate the police. I mean, at least you're all united. And it does seem interesting that it's just trying to wedge in this racism thing again when it's 5 cops. Surely it's the violence of the police they should be looking at.
Yeah, well, I think they're looking at... A left-wing commentator can look at anything. It's like a Rorschach blot test. They can look at anything and see racism. But, I mean, Paul, if we're speculating on motives for the police, I mean, the police have a lot of interactions with violent criminals. And, of course, young black men are overrepresented as perpetrators for those crimes.
Yeah, this whole... I mean, we should...
Deal with that hand grenade.
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, this is essentially what they're saying is this is racism by osmosis. You are in an environment where this journalist perceives there is always racism, therefore, no matter what colour your skin is, you will be racist, conveniently just towards black people, as if that's the only type of racism.
Yeah, and of course, we've seen footage, there have been other videos that might not have been as well publicised of the police beating white people to death or shooting white people.
Yeah, I mean, it's harrowing. I was outside with the producer, Jonathan, earlier, and we both tried to avoid watching this video. I don't want to see the video. It is harrowing, but I got to hear it, which is probably just as bad, to be honest. But parking that absolutely harrowing incident to one side, this presents a really interesting challenge to left-wing journalists and left-wing speakers, essentially, because this really does challenge the narrative because it's black on black. It's doing if this we all know had that been a black person and had that been a white person and some black cops, that'd have been a big story. And conversely, would have been a much bigger story if that had been white cops and a black person. Yeah. Now this is just black people beating up black people, which is the same as white people beating up white people.
Yeah, but...
I know they've got the power of being a police.
Yeah, the police is the crucial thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the power of being police. But what this does is it completes...
It's a police issue rather than a race issue.
Yeah, absolutely it is. But I don't agree that all police are racist. I mean, this isn't a racist...
violent.
Well, no, of course not, but I don't...
A good chunk of them.
Yeah, it does appear that way. It's a fair comment, although I'm sure you're saying it in jest, but it is a fair comment. But this isn't racism, and that's the trouble. They're trying to find racism where there isn't any.
Yeah, they're trying to project it on. I can't believe you haven't watched that video. Anyway, the Sunday Telegraph now in Scotland has banned haggis and is allowing male rapists into female prisons. Is it the wokest country in the world, Paul?
Well, quite possibly. It's going that way. And how Scotland became the wokest country in the world, the headline says. Nicola Sturgeon's passion for fashionable causes is changing the Scottish social landscape, much to the frustration of many locals. Now, full disclosure up front, anyone who's seen me on social media or YouTube or anything will know that I'm not the biggest fan of Nicola Sturgeon, and it's for this very reason, because she just floats around in the political winds, picking up any left-wing cause, essentially to deliver what I believe is a right-wing manifesto. Her SNP manifesto is essentially to break up Britain, right? And the way she's doing that is she's winning over as many people as she possibly can. She's essentially a nationalist, a socialist nationalist.
Yeah, she's like the Scottish version of the BNP.
Yeah, I mean, if you... Yeah, exactly. But I think if you... she seems to have a fixation with gender, sex, and worst of all, children, and seems to be picking up and running with that at any cost. All we ever hear is it from the other side is, oh, how could you possibly challenge this gender recognition bill, because, trans people are victimised against. But at the same time, how can you use it in this way?
But there are also other things that have happened under Nicola Sturgeon's watch. For example, the Scottish Civil Service agreed to delete the word mother from its maternity leave policy. They asked for anyone with a cervix to come forward for screening. I mean,
who could they be?
Mother is quite key to maternity leave. I mean, even whatever gender, whatever pronouns you've got, if you're taking maternity leave, you're a mother. The two words are inextricably linked.
It's not a dirty word either.
Yeah.
Mother is a lovely word.
Depends what comes after mother.
Oh, that's a good point. But also, Scottish undergraduates are also a minority because they introduced a strategy that was... They tried to reduce poverty and to reduce a lack of social mobility, but they've ended up effectively barring middle-class students from the best university courses. And it actually discovered that out of 1,200 Scots who applied to study law at the University of Edinburgh, basically 659 were flagged as widening access. So that means that. Oh God, I've got
another term for diversity, isn't it?
Can I tell you something? I'm basically turning myself in circles with this, but the point is that they are shutting down access for middle-class students, because if you're from a disadvantaged background, you get to go to university, but then the universities don't have enough money, so they have to get in foreign students who pay astronomical fees. So that means that the middle classes of Scotland
are being squeezed out.
Yes,
it's ridiculous. Middle-class students are obviously the best. Anyway, Telegraph now reporting on politicised police groups for vegans and LGBTQ that are distracting officers from going out and chasing down criminals. Although if they're vegans, they're not going to get very far chasing down those criminals, are they, Diane?
No, they won't have the muscle mass. So vegan and LGBT police groups are among 200 distracting officers from fighting crime, says Priti Patel. So this is a report by the think tank Policy Exchange. Don't they have fabulous names? And it's been backed by Priti Patel. And it's basically saying that there are about 200 staff networking groups that have been formed by the police. So, for example, you have the National Association of Muslim Police. And you have groups like this that work within the police force, but unfortunately, they're starting to try to influence government policy. Now, this is coming at a time where the crime-solving rate is at a record low. It's ridiculous. I think only 5.4% of crimes get solved at the moment.
Yeah, the police don't have time because they're too busy painting everything rainbow-coloured.
Well, yeah, there's like...
Going to these groups and trying to get... I mean, the things that they're trying to ban, they tried to ban the term Islamist for Muslim extremists, even though that's specifically what the word Islamist means. They've tried to abolish the government's counter-terrorism prevent programme.
Yes, and that's the crucial thing.
They've attacked trans critics. They're trying to abolish programmes that are trying to do good work, and they're spending their time doing politicised things that are really no business of the police.
Well, the police are effectively trying to change government policy. That particular group, the National Association of Muslim Police, got together with another group, Muslim Engagement and Development, and they are campaigning against the terrorist program. It's ridiculous. They're trying to influence government policy. That is not the role of the police. You can have your ideas, but you shouldn't be you should be policing. You should be looking after the citizens, not telling us that you're all vegan, so we should all be vegan.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
A vegan group.
Well, this seems to be happening across all organisations, not just the police. We've got equality, diversity, and inclusion groups. Organisations in every business, in every public sector institution and organisation that are, promoting these politicised woke ideologies at the expense of actually getting any work done. Everybody gets sent on, racial awareness training and has to sit there for an afternoon. There's free sandwiches, but there's nothing of any productivity or use being done.
It's one great big contradiction, isn't it? For a set of organisations that's hell-bent on impartiality, diversity, equity, equality, they have an awful lot of special interest groups. So they've got this great, we're all in it together, but in these minor little silos where we all got our own thing, and we're going to try and influence everybody else. To me, it's madness. It does very much feel like everyone is equal and some people are more equal than others.
And I think the police only need one special interest group, and that's the Masons. Anyway, the Sunday Times now, and roses are red, Labour are in the news. What a surprise. They hate women and Jews. Is this the case, Paul?
Lovely little poem, Leo. Labour shut down the anti-Semitism debate. Now it's silencing women. I'm going to read a little bit of this story, actually, because I think it really adds a decent piece of context. In the privacy of a committee room on the parliamentary estate, Labour MPs gather for top-secret meetings to discuss the erosion of sex-based rights. Some have taken to wearing a badge with a dinosaur emblazoned on it as a reference to Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy's comment that feminists who oppose self-identification for people wanting to change their gender are dinosaurs hoarding their rights. I think it's absolutely fascinating. And actually it's heartwarming, or heartening at least, for me to hear that groups across parties now, particularly groups of women, are starting to sort of stand up against this because they have been afraid. The point of this, the thing that jumps out to me in this story is that women in particular are afraid to talk about this issue. And if
the patriarchy's back.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, I don't want to chuck the baby out with the bathwater here. I don't want to dismiss the fact that, there's a very small number...
I bet the Tavistock would. You mutilate it on the way out as well.
I'll keep setting you up for these jokes. Sorry, you completely throw me. But there is a point here that whilst there is a very small population of trans people, they are victims often, but the biggest cohort of victims in this, without a shadow of a doubt, is women.
Yeah.
Women are... Nobody can identify what one is. They can't do anything without anyone having a say. This isn't happening to men. It's men that seem to continually be the oppressor.
Yeah. Yeah, Diane, I mean, this seems... as Paul said, I'm sort of heartened that this is... At least there are people in Labour who, don't go along with all the sort of gender woo-woo nonsense and the anti-Semitism. It's a shame they have to meet in secret.
Yeah, that is the really appalling thing. And it really shows that Keir Starmer has absolutely... He doesn't have a unified party at all. Because you have people like Rosie Duffield, and she speaks out for women's rights, and she's been shouted down by men in the House of Parliament, and it's a very clear optic when you see that. There was another lady, Miriam Cates, she was shouted down as well. And the weird thing is that the people who are meeting together who are gender critical, which for those of you listening who might not know what that is, gender critical is when you mean that you're opposed to the idea that gender identity is more important or significant than biological sex.
It means you think a bloke's a bloke and a woman's a woman.
Yeah, well, definitely that's where you sort of more lean towards, and it's a cross-party meeting because whenever anybody says something out loud, they'll get shouted down. And they'll get all this hate online and things like this. And it just shows that, sadly, Keir Starmer, because he could barely say what a woman was a couple of months ago anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad that J.K. Rowling has held back some of her funding for the Labour Party.
Oh, has she? Amazing.
Yeah.
Their biggest donor. Anyway, the final story of this section is a story in the Express so ridiculous it sounds like it's made up. This is unbelievably the world we live in. There's some teething issues in prison, Diane.
I can't even begin. So the Express has gone with trans killer now identifies as infant and demands dummy nappies and baby food in jail. So a prisoner called Sophie Eastwood, just to give you the talk. So once upon a time, Sophie Eastwood was Daniel Eastwood and was put into jail in 2004 for dangerous driving. Whilst in jail, with a month to go until they were released, Daniel murdered his cellmate by strangling him to death in a very violent manner. And he was given life with a minimum sentence of 15 years. Then in 2016, after a session with a psychologist, Daniel realised he was a woman and wanted to become Sophie Eastwood. And now in 2023, apparently, Sophie wants to be baby Sophie. And I can't help feeling that there's limits here. I don't know whether this is a fetish by this person. I don't know whether this person is simply seeing what they can get away with because they're bored.
Well, maybe instead of being transferred to a women's prison, they want to be transferred to the naughty step.
Yeah, possibly. They definitely... I feel like this is somebody who's just trying to escape from who they are. And unfortunately, it really does... it really does give genuine trans people a bad look because it makes genuine trans people... This is the kind of thing that they don't want in the news. And this is a very minor person who's doing this. Like, it's one person who is a horrid human being.
This is what I hear all the time. Oh, it's just one person. But there's a lot of just one persons doing, wanting to identify as whatever. There's a lot of men who want to identify as babies. I've seen it in other things. The thing that worried me, the thing that jumped out at me, people can want to do whatever they want. They can dress up, wear a nappy, whatever you want to do, fine. Just don't
make everybody else get involved.
Don't make everybody else. I'm not going to come along and give you a cuddle. But something that jumped out for me was that prison bosses are taking the demands seriously.
I really hope they're not.
They're taking the demands seriously.
I tell you why they probably are, is because the process within Scotland enforces that they have to and allows for these things to take place. I really do love Scotland, Leo. Half my family are Scottish and I love them all dearly.
But sounds like you're saying I'm not a racist, but
at the end of the day,
why you hate Scotland.
When the world is going absolutely mental like it is, Scotland is starting to lead the way.
Yeah. And I didn't see it coming either, Paul. It surprised me.
And it's because of the government within Scotland. You speak to the average Scotsman or woman or trans person, they're not interested in this. And Diane hit the nail on the head, actually. All this nonsense aside, and there are many stories like this now, they're always going to jump out. All this nonsense aside, the people in this particular case that have been undermined the most are transgender people. Yeah. They don't want to see this stuff. This completely undermines everything. Yeah. That's why they should buckle down on the process and prevent it from happening in the first place.
The people that are being undermined the most are babies that are going to have to share a cot with this man. Anyway, that's it for this section, but join us after the break as the Pope goes Pride, Gen Z goes celibate, and regional accents go to the job centre. What a time to be alive. We'll see you after the break.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We kick off again with the Metro, and the Pope says homosexuality is no longer a sin. That should be a relief for a lot of clergymen. What's the story, Paul?
Well, first of all, the Pope is the one person who can say he's not homophobic, because he can say that most of his friends are gay. However, Pope Francis has moved to clarify comments about homosexuality in a recent interview after he was reported to have labelled it a sin. And the problem he's got here is Francis has made headlines across the world in the last week or so in the Associated Press, because what he's saying is that criminalising homosexuality is unjust. However, his religion deems that it is a sin. So he's just got to... I'm always fascinated when the Catholic Church go at these stories. Now, I'm not sure if religions can be progressive and keep evolving. Perhaps they have to keep people coming in through the church door. But this is you can argue till the cows come home whether homosexuality is deemed bad within the Bible. But one thing it is pretty much overwhelmingly seen as is a sin. Not something I agree with, by the way. So how he can be progressive about this in any way? I think
Diane, I mean, do people want religions to be progressive? I mean, I thought the whole point is it's sort of a bit of mumbo-jumbo nonsense that doesn't, it doesn't have to be nice and it doesn't have to make sense.
Well, there are two things here that are really bad. One is that, yes, you're right, he's trying to change his religion. Now, I'm sorry, either it's the word of God or it isn't. Yeah. Either it's what you believe or it isn't. And what's happening is he's trying to bring in a whole new range of people. He's saying, oh, no, look, we're cool with the LGBT crowd. We're cool. It's like, well, you're not. Mm-hmm. And your God isn't. And your religious book isn't. So make up your mind.
Well,
because a lot of people are going to jump over to Islam because they're not changing their book.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Although they perhaps should.
The second thing, which is really bad, is that he did say it's a sin. He said it's a sin, and he said, but it's not a crime. wait a minute, that's worse, because a sin gets judged by God, and that gives people who are extremists the excuse to attack homosexual people because God told them.
Don't give them ideas, Diane.
No, but this is my point. Crime is something you commit against another human being. A crime is something that could be judged in a law court.
Yeah.
But a sin against the almighty universe, that's 50 times worse. And it gives people the right to just go off on their own crusades and really inflict harm on the gay people.
Which is the danger of ideology. Anyway, the Sunday Times next, and it seems regional accents limit your career options. Does this mean I'll never get a job hosting a topical news show, Diane?
What did you say? I couldn't understand a word.
Confusing.
So, academics at Nottingham, Trent and De Montfort universities have found out that regional accents are still a bar to law careers. Now, you must take this with a pinch of salt because they seem to have only questioned 99 people. So initially I was not very impressed with the amount of people that they asked. But apparently more than 80% said they would be comfortable being represented by an advocate with an RP accent. So somebody sounds a bit like me, they'd be like, yes, you can represent me in court. However, fewer than 20% said they were happy to be represented by a barrister with a Southwestern or West Midlands accent, and they would be uncomfortable. Now, I get my Southwestern accent back once I've had 3 gins.
Yeah.
So, you know... If you
I've got to say, I mean, would you be happy? Paul, would you be happy with a barrister who sounded like they're from the West Country? I mean, I wouldn't... A barrister, or more specifically, an airline pilot. I don't want to be on a plane and somebody comes over the tannoy be like, we're going to London. I can't do the accent, but you know what I mean.
Well, absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are cruising at 36,000 feet. I don't see what's wrong with this.
We're not in a
She's just had 3 gins in the last 2 minutes.
We're an Airbus, not a tractor.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure anyone wants, you know, Barry the Pasty or Barry the Fingers representing them, but to say so is prejudice, right? And I'm talking about working-class nicknames here.
Yeah.
Because the point of this is that, as Diane has rightly pointed out, people that speak proper should do proper jobs. It's like if you're sat there on a plane and the pilot comes over. If he's all a bit ooh-ah, you start worrying whether you're going to...
I didn't say that.
No, that's exactly what you said, Diane, and it's now on the television.
Then you're reading it off a newspaper. It's ridiculous. Anyway, moving on, the Sunday Telegraph now, and the government's net zero plans could be derailed by the image of plumbers as white male thickos too dumb to go to university. Paul, I swear it's purely coincidental that you've got this story.
Yeah, well, best to speak to you. This is the flip side of the previous story, isn't it? For the viewers and the listeners, of course, plumbers' thick white male image could derail UK's net zero ambitions. Loads of things are winding me up straight away. Experts have raised winding me up again, raised concerns that image problems in plumbing could stop recruitment of people needed to install heat pumps. Like heat pumps is some sort of middle-class privilege.
Look, it's a new... We're going to replace all our gas boilers with these new heat pumps, electric heat pumps, and we need 600,000 installed a year by 2028 to meet government targets, which sounds ridiculous.
I mean, who is saying that all plumbers are white and thick anyway? It's quite a difficult job.
Yeah.
It really is quite a difficult job. And who cares? The only thing I'm interested in is whether they're competent or not. I don't care what colour they are, whether they can speak the lingo or not. I'm only interested in the meritocracy of how good they are.
The study was conducted by the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and their report found that the plumbing workforce is 95% white and at least 95% male. More than 2/3 are over 45 years of age, and 2 in 5 want to leave the industry in the next decade.
So it's the same sort of situation as with truckers, where they had a huge problem with truckers suddenly falling out of the labour market because they reached that age and nobody wanted to be a trucker. And then the wages spiked for truckers, and no doubt it'll happen for plumbers as well, who actually already make a decent...
I don't think it's relevant that it's 90% white. It's 100% working class.
Yeah.
That's the point here. It's the point in the other story is that there's 100% middle class or upper middle class.
Yeah.
These people aren't white. They're just working class. They're traditional working class jobs.
Although, ironically, if people do go into the trades, they often make a lot more money than somebody who does some, Mickey Mouse degree, some humanities or arts degree at one of our former polytechnics that's now a university. Anyway, Sunday's Metro to close this section, and they're reporting on the self-centred sex lives of the West's degenerate youth, Paul.
Yeah, so sex and Gen Z. People think we're not interested, but it isn't true. So the point of this story really is, and it reads a bit like Jackie magazine, if you've ever seen the 70s, because it's kind of a tour, it's a story of this young girl laying on her bedroom musing how she uses Bumble and what she's looking for, and what she's finding is that in her particular case, men are much more interested, Gen Z men I should say, are much more interested in friends with benefits, or as they call it, sneaky links, which is news to me. I've not heard of sneaky links.
I thought that was when you got a sausage out the fridge.
Ooh, sneaky link.
Sneaky link.
Yeah, well, this seems to be... I mean, I'm not sure that it's news that men, which seem to be, for this particular story, are much more interested in casual sexual relationships than women are.
Yeah.
However, her argument back to that is... and the second part of this story really is that they're not saying that they're less interested in sex. They're saying they're much more open about sex.
Right.
They talk about it much more openly, and as a result, they seem to have less of it.
They probably think they invented it.
Well, there's this idea that numerous university studies have said that those born between 1996 and 2012 are in a sex recession. And
12? They're 11.
They should be in a sex recession then.
What on earth?
Not in Scotland.
That's what this article says.
Well, this article is clearly written by some kind of paedophile. I mean, an 11-year-old.
That's a good point. I just sort of read the numbers. I didn't do the maths.
Yeah.
Good grief, that's ridiculous.
This isn't Romeo and Juliet times. Well, the women they interviewed for the article were all of age. I was surprised how, considering they're young, they weren't very... Considering they're talking about sex, they were kind of munters mostly.
But they're looking at this. They were saying that they're in a sex recession, and they're saying, well, this is the generation that have had the social media for the first time. They're the generation who have had a lot of access to pornography.
Right.
And they're saying that because they have a very, they're saying, they've got an uncertain economic outlook. I'm sorry, but I think every generation's had that.
Yeah, they say that about everything. And actually, the labour market's very, very tight at the moment, and wages are going up. So, their economic outlook is rosier than it might have been.
But they're more likely, as you said, because they have all of this information flying around and easy access to it, they're more likely to also embrace unique relationship dynamics.
Right.
So things like heteroflexibility, which is where you're mainly heterosexual, but you're flexible to not be.
And polyamorousness as well. Multiple, and they have polycules and stuff. It's basically being chucking it about a bit, but dressing it up with woke language so you feel better about yourself. Anyway, that's it for this section. I'll see you in a couple of minutes for the final section with Scots of the Scotch, and an American has a problem with Wales. Not his wife, a disastrous doorbell ding-dong. Can we cut to break?
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
To the well-oiled machine that is headliners. We jump back in with the Sunday Times now, and it's a story about booze. Doesn't affect me. I've been doing dry Jan. She hates it when I call her that.
This is with Diane.
So the Times, last orders for alcohol advertising. So the Scottish Government, it's them again, they're in consultation on new measures which at their most extreme would result in a ban on alcohol branding or advertising in public spaces or online. Now this consultation ends on the 9th of March, and obviously there are two big sides to this debate. On one hand, you have pubs, restaurants. I mean, it's Scotland. They're known for their whiskey. You have Johnny Walker everywhere and other whiskey brands and all of this. And you want to go to Scotland to try their whiskey, and there's names everywhere. And it brings so much to the economy. They had like 2 million people before the pandemic. They had 2 million people doing like proper tastings and tours. And so these measures would mean that alcohol's treated the same way as cigarettes, for example, where you'd have to sort of black out the windows. You'd have to put everything in a grey packet with "may damage your liver" written on the side.
Oh, you couldn't have the nice bottles with the nice designs on them. You couldn't advertise on the sides of buses or billboards or anything.
They may even stop sports events and cultural festivals. They may even stop them from accepting alcohol sponsors. Right? But on the other hand of the argument, you have the fact that Public Health Scotland, you have people saying, well, something has to be done to tackle the alcohol crisis in Scotland. They still have a very severe problem. I'm just trying to find a little quote.
I'm going to have to move to Paul on this one. Have you got any comment on this?
Yeah, so I think the point of this is, it seems to me that I do wonder whether Sturgeon knows what's going on with their country, because there's two reasons to go to Scotland, isn't there? The whiskey and how to learn to drink more of it.
How dare you, Paul?
And it's not it's not like and to visit my in-laws.
You haven't. How can you look down on any other place?
Can I just give you one quote, though, on the other
Now you
side?
set Diane off.
See, look, 700, an average of 700 people are hospitalised and 24 people die each week in Scotland from illnesses caused by drinking alcohol.
Yeah, not whiskey, though. That's probably special brew or something like that. Also, I should probably just say, I suggested, I implied that the author of a Metro article might have been a paedophile because he was talking about 11-year-old children having sex or something. Just to be clear, that was just a joke, or, you know, it wasn't serious. I didn't mean it. I just had a word from our legal team. Anyway, Sunday's Mirror next, and an American has complained about a Welsh mountain that smells of urine. Well, thank goodness he didn't go to Cardiff. Is he a wee annoyance?
He is, I think. Great joke. American tourist angry at Welsh mountain that has no toilets and smells of wee, or urine, as it says in the story. So this is about, I mean, this is directly from a TripAdvisor rating, which, by the way, 98% of them were very positive, but obviously nobody's interested in the positive, beautiful mountain ratings, so we go straight to the negative ones. So the complaints are about the smell and lack of toilets, and most interestingly and amusingly, how exhausting the accent is.
Yep.
So the point this American tourist is making is that there wasn't a toilet there for him, the place smelled awful, and he didn't understand a word anyone said.
But may I just point out that Mount Snowdon is the busiest mountain in the United Kingdom, and if you are going to have a lot of guests, you don't want people defecating everywhere. So why not build a toilet inside the mountain so it's covered, like one of those,
a James Bond baddie?
Yeah, like a Teletubby Well, I was thinking more Teletubby. You know how the Teletubbies had a little
Teletubbies don't
house?
go to the toilet.
No, but they had a little...
orifices. Anyway, finally, we go to Sunday's Mirror, and something shocking has been caught in a doorbell cam. No, it's not Mark Dolan in his cycling spandex, unfortunately, although I've got Polaroids. If anybody wants them, just email me. Enlighten us, Diane. What's this all about?
OK, so you know how you can get those doorbell cams where you ring the doorbell and it goes straight through to your mobile phone so you can see who's calling you. It's a good security device. Unfortunately, a woman's mother-in-law was on the other end slagging her off.
Yeah.
Slagging her off to her aunt or something like that. She and my husband's aunt were making jokes at my expense, belittling me, and of course, all round vile. Now, the interesting thing is, we don't know the parties concerned. No. Right? There's two sides to every argument. So, and we don't know what she considers a belittling comment, and she didn't say what was belittling. Because what if the woman was sat there, like the mother-in-law was sat there going, and she gave us a lasagna and it was completely burnt? Like, that is a justifiable
So just
criticism.
be careful what you say. There's cameras everywhere. Everywhere is a Chinese surveillance state. Anyway, that's all for tonight's show, but let's take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. The Sunday Telegraph has hospitals at home plan to save the NHS. The Observer has, I saw children face bullying and racism at Asylum Hotel. The Sunday Mirror has Conservatives, cash scandal, top Tories, Russian oil millions. Sunday Express has Rishi at war over migrants. The Daily Star on Sunday has a pain in the bun dumping donut on its way out. That's it for tonight. Thank you to my guests, and join us tomorrow for Headliners at 11 p.m. See you then.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.